Right, welcome back to the second hour of KIVUMBI2022, and tonight we talk about the state of the race, why the players are apprehensive, and we ask if the 2022 election is down to the wire. Very interesting observations ahead of the election. Last week we had a session with two senior IEBC officials, the CEO of IEBC and of course the chairman of the IEBC. There are quite a number of things that were raised in that interview, joint interview done by all media houses. And tonight we try and look at the preparedness of the IEBC. We know there's a lot of things they didn't do in time, and still, as late as today, we have orders from the court, and there's still people in court, so we'll see if they will make it to the list with only 21 days left to the election. Willie Sotieno, an advocate, an elections expert, a political player, or he's still trying his hands in politics, from technocrat to politics. Willie Sotieno joins us tonight. On the table so is Joshua Kipto, also an advocate, outgoing Speaker of the Nandi County Assembly, and also a political player, you know, also trying his hands in politics. Herman Manyora, political analyst and a scholar, and of course Gloria Oroba, youth policy analyst, and of course tonight she tries to balance the gender card on the table, which is impossible. We needed two of you.
And you forgot to say an active politician.
Active politician. Yeah. What does an active politician mean, Glenn?
A person who has vied in Kisii County, who is still in, you know,
vied is past tense.
You know, when you vie,
yes.
you actually are a politician, and then unabaki kwa ground sasa kutafuta kura.
So you're on the ground.
Niko kwa ground.
Ground inasemaje?
Ground inasema Chief Hasla ameingia.
Tuko side.
Tunapanguza huko State House.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming tonight. Let's talk about the IEBC preparedness. And I know you all watched last week, or I'll assume you all watched last week, when the IEBC Secretariat and the Commission was speaking to the media. And there were so many observations. But let me begin with Herman, for obvious reasons. That morning you were on television and you looked disgusted with a lot of things that were said on that platform, especially the fact that you feel the IEBC is not prepared for this election. We have 21 days. This is not even something we should be talking about. We shouldn't be going back and forth on the state of IEBC preparedness, but it's a usual story every election. We question a few days to the election, are they prepared? This is 7 weeks flat.
Yeah, if you had listened properly, you would have heard me say that we have a woman in the labor ward and she must deliver, baby. It's not time to question things, what the maternity looks like, what the midwife took for breakfast, and no. We must deliver the baby. So much as IEBC has issues, we have an election, and IEBC is there, and with our support, it has to deliver this election. Time for looking at whether IEBC was prepared or not is past. I also mentioned that 2 years ago, I called the attention of the country. Ask Kenyans, are you ready for this election? Why don't you even postpone this election? Of course, I didn't mean postpone. I was just provoking people into having a conversation. I was talking about the things you are now seeing. Okay. So IEBC, we have it, and they will conduct this election. They need our support despite the shortcomings. What I was mad with is the poor communication from the chairman and his CEO, and sometimes seeming to contradict each other.
Okay.
Appearing not to be so sure. That's what I was worried about. Okay. And I was saying, there must be somebody at IEBC being paid a salary and drawing allowances, a guy or somebody in charge of communication. What is their work?
Okay.
They have to prepare the CEO before he goes for such an important event. Okay. They have to prepare the chairman. That's what I was talking about.
That exposes them. The problem with this preposition, Willis, is because an election is a process. Yes. And that's one of the bases for the nullification of the 2017 election. Your opinion on the state of preparedness, and should we just ignore that regardless? We shouldn't be looking at the issues around. We shouldn't be concentrating on inanities. We should go for the substance, which is the IEBC must conduct an election.
Let me say this. In 2017, I spoke at a forum in the year 2016 where I said the 2017 elections will end in a stalemate. And the telltale signs were there. Today, I'll tell you, if those signs were there in 2017, today they are worse. The commission is the most incompetent commission that ever sat at Anniversary Towers. Worse than even the commission of Kivuitu. Professor says that we're in the labor ward and the baby must be delivered. But we've had so many instances where the baby was never delivered. Or if a baby is delivered, it's a stillbirth. What IEBC is setting us up is failure. If today we are sitting today here, if I asked all the 5 of us, who has seen the official voter register, the 22 million voter register for this election, none of us have seen it. I last applied last week, we got the register for 2017. We are being told that and the register is the primary entry point to any election. The ballot paper is the currency of the election, but the entry point is the register. The second point, you are being told you'll vote at your polling stations. IEBC has increased the number of polling stations by almost 10,000, between 10 to 16,000. I think it's around 10,000 from 2017. At the same time, they've only increased the number of registered voters by 3 million. Where are these new polling stations? How many ghost polling stations do we have? No one knows. How? Because if it was just the 3 million, the number of polling stations should have increased at most by 6,000, of which, let's say 4,000 to cater for the exactly 700 per polling station. Then the extra are for those polling stations where the numbers don't add up to 7,000. They can't be more than 2,000. So why is IEBC increasing the polling station by more than 10,000? And they are not informing members of the public and the political players where these polling stations are located. It is a fool who does the same thing twice and expect a different result. IEBC's failures of 2017 are worse today than they were then. And you've seen it even in the manner in which they've handled the dispute processes. Done in a way meant to undermine the actualization of the franchise of the candidates and the voters. And that is going to expose our elections to a potential collapse, in my view.
I'm coming back to you. And that, what you're saying would also mean if we were at all creating new polling stations, so you divide the 3 million, which means there could be 4,200, right?
There should be 4,200.
Yes.
Assuming you're just creating exactly 3 million.
All right.
But if you add it, let's assume there are some that, let's say in a polling center, you have 7,000 people, new registrants, 7,300. So you'll be creating the first 10 using the 700.
Yes.
Then this extra one. So you're only creating one extra one per polling center. But they've created 10,000
It's impossible.
More. It's impossible.
We're going to talk about that further. But Jack Tumwa is on the other side, and we'll be speaking to him, not to forget him, former ECK commissioner. I'd like to ask Jack when I go to him, you know, at this particular time, should we even be talking about preparedness? But let me come to the lady. Let me come to the lady. Your analysis of where we are right now with this election, from where you sit.
I was just listening to Willie speaking, and I realized, my goodness, I have the privilege of actually understanding some of these things even without being informed, because when you talk about increasing polling stations, it does not necessarily mean that the stations you're increasing are for the new registered voters. I can tell you for a fact that in Mombasa constituency, where I vied, we had certain polling stations where you had so many registered members, and some of them had to actually walk distances to get to that polling station. So what happened is, because of the requests that some of those polling centers or the stations are way far up, there were some that even when we were doing the party primaries and we were trying to figure out which polling stations are going to be used, because Mombasa constituency has over 120 polling stations. So when we were doing party primaries, we actually had to figure out, are we going to use all the polling stations? This is now on a party level. That's when I started understanding the logistics of polling stations. And when you say that IEBC is increasing polling stations, it just doesn't mean that it's just because of the new registered voters. It also means that in certain places, people have been walking distances to go and vote. But onto one of the things, and that's why I was like, it's good to vie, because unajua ukikuwa kwa ground, una understand vitu kabisa. You know, it's not just theory from a boardroom, it's actually like things that you experience. But I'll tell you something on the IEBC preparedness. My take on this is that there are people who, no matter what you do as an independent organization, who you are not answering, these are not your bosses. Because IEBC, by the way, does not answer to anyone. It answers to the law. It actually follows the Constitution. There is no authority anywhere that will sit and say, I'm going to give you directions and you're going to do this as IEBC. It is an independent commission. And I think the frustration that you see with some of the either, you know, stakeholders, either candidates who are presidential candidates. I know Will is actually aggrieved from the decisions that were taken, and he's not on the ballot as at now, so I can imagine how he feels about the preparedness. But I'll tell you for a fact, with everything that's going on, with all the court cases that are going on, with all the new, remember, even Section 22 of the Election Act, we amended it, and you know, IEBC had to, much later when we were putting the party list, come in and say, you know, they had started asking for degrees and whatever. I petitioned that section particularly, and they had to respond. So I would say IEBC, as far as I'm concerned, with the environment that they are dealing with the things that are happening, because it is, you're not dealing in a static environment. Things are always changing, you know. So I would say they're doing their very best, and unfortunately some of the stakeholders are starting to create an impression that the independent commission that is going to have an oversight of this election is actually not doing a good job, so that they can start they are preparing their ground to, as usual, refuse the results, as they have done. You know, my closing remark on that one is that my closing remark is that there is a presidential candidate who has never actually accepted any results that IEBC has put out. So therefore, how can they have any authority to come and say IEBC doesn't know how to do their job?
Let me fact check only two things. Only two things, Kelly. Only two, quickly. Number one, it's very erroneous for Gloria to say that we've increased the polling stations because people are walking far. The number per polling station is set in law to be 700. So even if you're bringing a center closer to the people, the number that was there, which was 700, it was static. You are only creating new polling stations in regard to the new registrations. You are not creating new polling stations in regard to the old registrations.
Can it be split? Can it be split?
You can split a center. No, Gloria is confusing a polling center with a polling. Listen.
No, I'm not confusing. Just say you want to educate the electorate.
Center.
I'm not confusing.
That within
there's a center which is a school.
Let me finish. A center has many polling stations. So that if somebody is complaining that my center is far, you can decide that if this polling center had 10 polling stations, I'm removing 4 and to take it to another center.
Still remain.
The number of stations remain intact. And let me say this. When she says that there is one candidate who has never accepted the results of IEBC, that candidate who has never accepted those results has always rejected them based on facts, law, and logic.
Based on
the Supreme Court of
grounds.
Kenya, in petition number 1 of 2017, Raila Odinga versus IEBC, actually affirmed that IEBC had committed illegalities and irregularities. That is that's an indictment of the commission. It is not that the candidates refused to accept those results. I was in that election.
Of course I know, and I know you represented them, so I was in that court case.
And what we exposed in court, if you are to get the deep magnitude of the kind of illegalities and irregularities that led to the nullification of that result, the first in Africa, the first in the Commonwealth, the third in the world, a Supreme Court nullifying a presidential election, that is a deep indictment of any responsible commission.
The candidate has a history.
No, so it's not about the
candidate has a history of setting grounds to reject.
The last election, that candidate was supported by the Supreme Court of Kenya, which affirmed that decision. To date, IEBC that you're defending
I know you are his lawyer.
That IEBC
and
has never opened the servers which they were told by the highest court in the land to open. They never opened them.
The candidate has a history to reject elections. He has a history.
I'll remind you, in 2002, that candidate accepted elections in 2002.
He's never accepted.
He accepted 2002.
Thank you very much. I think we have digressed a bit. The question was...
this was necessary.
The question was on IEBC.
Yes, preparedness.
Where I think there's that clarity that needs to be brought out about polling center and a polling station.
Yes.
That is very important. And I think that comes into play because when you go to, for example, I can use, for example, if you go to Wasingishu, there's MV Patel, a polling center with up to 13,000 votes, but several polling stations in between. Those are the kind of clarity that is needed. Number two, it is also important to remember that there was that requirement. I don't know if IEBC was able to achieve the idea of a polling station to have not more than 700, so that you can have as many streams of polling station. Willis, I think you can be able to confirm if that was achieved.
There was 700 per polling station.
And that one, And
maximum,
that one,
it can be
maximum,
lower,
maximum.
never go higher.
And that is the reason why you can find a polling center with several
polling stations.
Yes. Importantly, the basis of the nullification of 2017 election was on the process. And that is why I'm happy we are cross-examining the preparedness of the IEBC. From my analysis, I would wish to feel that they are doing better than the IEBC of 2017 in the sense that we are asking difficult questions now. Number two, they are open to criticism and they engage. In fact, one of my biggest concerns I had with IEBC for a long time was always operating as opaque. I saw in today's Nation newspaper, the headline is heading towards an opaque election. And the complaint of the headline was, how open is IEBC? And I think so far so good. I can appreciate something I've seen happening for them every week. They somehow press us. And last week when I saw the media engaging me and this question being asked become very important. What I think is on the basis that once bitten twice shy, by virtue they suffered the ignominy, and I'm happy Willis has given the statistics. The first in Africa, the second in Commonwealth, third in the world. The ignominy was right at the doorstep of IEBC. This time you can see them working hard to avoid that case. Okay. I'll be a pragmatist. We only have 20 days to the election. There is no reasonable way we are going to change the chairman, the commission, CEO, the commissioners. It is the die is cast about them. What is important for IEBC, I think, is I'll give them a 64%. Okay. There is still room to cover.
And that's good enough?
Not good enough.
Okay.
The problem with the election, it is like the expectation of a judge that you have to be above reproach, just like the Caesar's wife. That is the expectation of IEBC. Remember, Ken, we are coming into a very emotive and consequential election. This election is extremely consequential, and I'll give my basis now from a political lens. One, we've never seen a campaigner or someone who's done campaign as much as the deputy president as a person for presidency. Number two, Raila Odinga, this is actually the final. There is no other election that I think Raila Odinga is going to vie per se. So the stakes are extremely high, to the point you even see, who would imagine that we would be in a political situation whereby candidates are bullied to relinquish. For example, if I'm vying for governorship, one phone call and you're out because of the stakes of the coalition. That is what has happened in this election, both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. So the stakes are so high, putting pressure on IEBC. My 64% is appreciating that, one, they're open. Number two, they're trying to undo the problems that were labeled against them in 2017 by the Supreme Court. And that's why you've seen them addressing the issue of Kimskit. You've seen them saying the issue of about electronic register versus manual register, but more importantly, allowing the stakeholders, in this case the coalitions and the candidates, to deal with them and accepting court verdicts on matters electoral process. They have not refused. That one, I'll credit them for that.
Okay. Haman, same thing. I mean, the disagreement, you can feel the table is divided. But again, if you feel the table is divided, you look at what's dividing it. It's along political lines, right? It's along political affiliation. He agrees 64%. He agrees there's someone who's scapegoating and IEBC is prepared and people are finding reasons. He said this is the worst. From where you sit as a political analyst and an observer, what's in your mind? Do you think is this divided along political affiliation or genuine concerns out here about the referee?
Yes, before I address myself, you know, in civilized society, people argue about things. There are things that are in dispute. But after time, we get to a point when you say, this question has been settled. So the narrative of a person not accepting defeat is a settled issue. Kenyans have come to accept that you cannot say somebody didn't accept defeat in 2007 when almost everybody knows what happened in 2007. Okay? The time Kibaki took his oath of office, looking at the time, and sneaking into office. Surely it can't be somebody who won election. The chairman of ECK then, KIVUMBI2022, saying he didn't even know who had won the election. The chairman, the spokesman of ECK, the electoral body, at some point saying people were cooking results and they can ban the country. And indeed, immediately after that, we saw lorry fulls coming from Nithi. Judge Kriegler, we brought him from South Africa, respected judge. If you listen to him speaking English, when he was asked, say you could not know who won the election. That means in English, the person who won didn't win. So this election cannot be the basis of saying Raila didn't accept the election. 2013, we saw what happened in the Supreme Court. Okay, we all know that. And therefore, nobody can say there's somebody who didn't win the election or who won the election and complain. In any case, what Raila did was to go to the Supreme Court as provided for by the Constitution then. That is not rejecting results. That is taking an avenue provided to you as a candidate by the law. In 2017, Willis has put it clearly. The Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of this country said the elections were not won fairly and nullified those elections. On what basis then can one send African lady say somebody has refused? That is a tired...
On the basis?
No, let me
on the basis that is...
Let me finish.
Okay. No, because you called me to the...
You have your time. That is a tired thing. Let's not go... surely some things we put them to rest. And when you put this issue to rest, it doesn't mean there are no other things you can engage. You can canvass many other issues about Raila if you wish. But the question of him rejecting the result, that has been put to rest. We can't talk about it. Now, as to your question, it is true.
The division, yes.
There will always be a division. Okay? Even in America, didn't we see it? Did we see it in terms of management of the results, in terms of the complaints, where they were coming from? So I'm not surprised that people from one side seem to be supporting IEBC, while those from the other side seem to be complaining. But like I told my friend...
So Willis is not on...
No, I'm saying, to me, I thought what Willis is saying is more neutral.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
like
wow.
He's saying like what I'm saying.
And I will just
He's saying, okay, let me just finish. I'm just about to
Yes,
finish. For example, what he's saying about polling stations. Many people are wondering, 10,000. The thing to be done is for Raila, Ruto and the rest, just to sit down with IEBC and find out, let them explain to them the 10,000. But it's a justified thing. You don't have to belong to one side to say that. But these others, what they are saying is right, except, like I told Kipto on another TV station, if I were them, I'll be a little cautious in celebrating IEBC. In defending IEBC loudly. Loudly. Because on the 10th of August, I could meet them in the streets crying. Secondly, and finally, in half a second, about praising IEBC, somebody could be setting you up. Reverse psychology.
All right. Gloria, I'm coming to you. I know you have a number of things to respond, and Willis also wants to respond. But Jack Tumwa, we lost him, so we've gotten him back. And Commissioner, having been at ECK, the level of preparedness weeks to the election, precisely today, is 21 days. That's 3 weeks to the election. Should we talk about the preparedness, or should we go the way we are and hope that there'll be a difference in this election in terms of the process and the outcome? He's on. You on mute, Commissioner? You on mute? Would you unmute your laptop? You on mute? All right.
I'm saying, Ken, thank you very much for keeping me in cold storage for this long.
Yes.
Now you can get me.
Yes.
They say, if you make your bed, be ready to lie on it. This bed has been made by Kenyans, and Kenyans must be ready to lie on it. If there have been any problem, if there are problems with IEBC, you have to look at a wider picture. Why is IEBC in a position in which it is today? IEBC does not operate alone. We know that election is a process. IEBC requires the executive to help it to do its work. IEBC requires the judiciary to enable it to perform its work properly. IEBC requires civil society for it to be able to perform well in its work. Now, if all these groups have not been supportive sufficiently to enable IEBC to do the work that it's supposed to do, really, we cannot sit here and blame IEBC for what is likely to be not the best output that it can give to us. The threshold, Kenyans have set a very, very high threshold for the performance of IEBC. And of course, if you take where we are now and where we were in 2017, there is a lot of awareness in Kenyans. So they will critique IEBC in each and everything, even some of those things that may not have been able to see during the 2017. Is IEBC prepared to run the elections? Well, I think it has done its work, and like my friend Manyora said when he started, we have no options. We have to go for elections come next month. There are some weaknesses.
Okay. Regardless of
there
how we go to the election?
Sorry?
Regardless of how we go to this election, I mean, you can't go to war unprepared and hope to win that war. There's so many questions that have been raised about the preparedness of the IEBC. So we can't just go to that election. And the most important thing about that question, Commissioner, is the fact that we could end up being in the same place we were in 2017, because lawyers are getting ready. I mean, this is the biggest payday for lawyers.
You are right to observe that there are lots of fears. For example, the thing we're talking about, the KIEMS not having been sourced but not being able, we are not very sure that they will give us the results we expect. There's a lot of talk about the poor sourcing of the KIEMS from the Dutch supplier, I think. We are told IEBC tested the conveyance of results. The results were not very good, and we expected that by this time perhaps they would have given us another try. We have not gotten the results. The date for election, Ken, is set for next month. And the missing links, in my view, can be corrected. Because if we've got KIEMS that are not sufficiently, that don't meet our requirements, it is too late for us to start thinking about them. And this is why some of us have been arguing all along that apart from the biometric, apart from using the electronic system in the voting, we need to have a fallback system where the black book or whatever you call it can be used, because we cannot trust technology 100%. There could be problems. We are not sure that we have done sufficient training. They say such equipment such as IT, technology is as good as the people who operate them. Are we sure we have sufficiently trained these clerks, 500,000 plus, to operate this technology in a way that we require? So there are some links, there are some missing gaps, but still that cannot stop us from going through elections.
Okay. Okay, very interesting. I'll come back to you, Commissioner. Gloria, I'm coming to you. Willis mentioned something about not being able to receive the register. As at now, last week the IEBC promised it will be published by Friday last week, if I'm not wrong. But what concerns me the most is not even about the register. Every twist and turn on the way, there's an issue with the IEBC. For example, Section 44 of the Elections Act. I mean, even trying and testing the technology that we are going to use in this election has not been done. And the law requires 120 days to the election, even procurement of those vital services. I mean, we're heading into an election that you say that it's a quarter that is concerned and pushing the IEBC preparing ground for disputing the election. But the facts are facts, Gloria. So as you respond to what he said, perhaps begin from there.
I want to bring you back to the light, because it seems that someone has convinced you that it's tanking. I want to bring you back to the light. It's not doom and gloom. And by the way, for you to be a career expert in any career, whether in journalism, in sportsmanship, any career, even these wakilis who are sitting here, you have to keep practicing and practicing. And let me tell you something, political conmanship is a career. And I can tell you that there's a person who has known how to actually professionally reject results from IEBC. And you know what? The bottom line is, they can say, you know, in 2007 everybody knew, and then in 2013 it was also this. What you are looking at is a professional who actually now, at now 2022, no, this is my opinion.
No.
I've actually sat here and I've also, no. I've also sat here and I've listened to a lot of things that you said.
We can't listen to such.
I wish he could
She
walk
reserves
out
the
of
right.
No,
She
not the
reserves
right
the
to
If
right.
he thinks that this show is not serious enough, he can
She
also walk
reserves
out.
the right
Yes.
to say
It
that.
is
You can't
my
come here
right.
and call people like
And
Raila
I'm going to
Conman.
say this.
And we listen to that.
A career.
You can counter it.
Nothing.
You can counter it.
No.
Manyora.
So I cannot speak when they are speaking, but they can
rubbish.
interject
You
when
won't
I'm
listen to
giving
that.
my analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, if he feels that he
Say
does,
things that
if you think that you
people like us
are
can
more
listen to.
befitting in another show, I think you should walk out of this one. We are Kenyans. We are also going to vote. We have opinions,
Gloria.
and we are experts in our
Gloria,
own right.
I'll protect your right to respond.
Allow me to finish
Yes.
this. There is no way you can have a history of more than 2 elections of rejecting it, and then you want to convince Kenyans that actually no, ni kwa sababu hivi, ni kwa sababu vile. Yani kila saa ukipatikana, there's always a reason.
Yes.
And I want to say this, by the way. That's why I'll say, let me bring you back to the light, because it also seems like you're about to say, oh, this thing imeanguka nini, you know, ABCD. Now,
I'm not about to say
this
that. I'm
is the
assessing their
same.
preparedness.
These are the same people who just months before this, we got into the election period, were pushing for the Building Bridges initiative. And what was in the BBI? They were going to politicize the independent commission, the IEBC. They were actually proposing that the commissioners who sit there are going to be chosen by the political parties. Already you can see that they had a hand in wanting to control IEBC.
Do you remember
when
IPPG?
we put it down,
Do you remember IPPG?
Listen, let me complete. When
Yes.
we said there's no way you're going to go into an independent commission and try to politicize it, it has to remain independent. Then they brought this other thing, and now I'm glad that Wakilis are sitting here and very, you know, because I'll ask them, it's the same way that there was this intent to also control judiciary by also bringing this ombudsman thing and that. So the angle here is there's always a person, and in this particular this presidential candidate, who wants to control the referee. And it has been brought about in different forms, BBI or other ways. And when they have realized that we cannot control the independent commission, they've started to bully the commission by saying they are not ready. Mara, we don't want manual, we don't want digital registers, they want manual. ODM as a political party is probably the only political party that conducted party primaries using a digital platform. And yet they're coming back to say, oh, and you know, nobody actually said that the manual register would not be presented. It's in law. So what I read here is you have an individual who wants to control the referee of this competition. And the bottom line is, we have said as Kenyans, because me sitting here, even if Manyora thinks I am not befitting to sit on this table, me as a Kenyan, as an analyst, as a youth advocate, I can tell you this. We have said no, we are looking out, and we are going to tell you, you're not going to control IEBC, you're not going to control the authority that's going to actually referee this competition. And if you cannot get votes,
Gloria, your point,
find another.
Your point is made. My question is,
Okay.
as I go to Willis,
Yes.
do you remember IPPG?
Well, depends on what angle you want to come for it.
Let me answer you.
No. You know, that's very demeaning, because he has asked me a question. Unless the media is also biased now. Can I be allowed?
Where does the media come in?
No, because you cannot say he answered the
Willis.
question on my behalf
It's
that I
Willis
don't
who has said,
remember, and yet you asked me a question.
Yeah. What angle? I just
Listen,
want to. You said the
ask
one
me a question.
politicians want to control the
Ask me a
independent
question.
bodies, right?
Yes.
So I remember.
Which we are saying as Kenya Kwanza, we want to ensure
then I
that
asked,
there's
do you remember
independence in the
IPPG and
institutions
how
that are
successful
there.
that election was after IPPG?
What is the question?
The question is, if you remember it, then you can't tell the politicians to they
But
will
that
manage
is
the
not a
election.
question, Ken. You have actually answered. You are giving me a point.
Do you remember?
You have not asked a question.
Let me
That is not a question.
Let me
You have not asked me a
say this.
question.
You see,
It's okay.
the challenge we are facing on the table today is this. We came here to discuss in deep details to audit the state of preparedness of the commission to conduct an election. Gloria, on the other hand, came here to discuss Raila Odinga. I mean, with all fairness to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, if there's a day for him to be discussed, he should also be allowed to sit, or his representative sit here and we discuss him, because his contribution to this nation is in its own stead. And if Gloria's script was to just come, make sure you only speak Raila, you speak Raila, you speak Raila, she's diluting the quality of the debate that we've come to engage with, and that's what Professor was saying.
But
Please, no.
Interject.
I didn't interject him. I did not interject. No, I did not interject him. I did not interject him. So allow me to speak, so that when Gloria comes, let's stick to discussing IEBC based on its facts, based on the evidence, based on the law. We don't spend now another 30 minutes talking about an individual who is not on the table. And in any event, if we had to take even 1 hour to discuss Raila Odinga, I'm telling you, we can't finish, because his history can be written in so many volumes of books, tomes of books. So let's stick to what brought us here. If a script, she was not prepared to discuss IEBC, that's okay. That's the failure on their part. She's not ready for
but
what.
Why would you say that?
She's not ready for what brought us today.
So
let's go this. Let me say this, Ken.
Yeah? It's not
If I ask the question, that where is the voter register? Yeah. That question should be legitimate question even asked by Kenya Kwanza. But because they are blinded, they don't even know you are going to an election, and you don't know what is the primary document that will be used in that election. That's the first question they should be asking. Where is the register? Let's see it. Let's audit it. The last I checked, their own party leader was saying that there are more than 1 million ghost voters on the register. That was his question when he presented his papers. That question to date has not been successfully answered. It can only be answered by presenting an audited voter register that all of us can take stock of and confirm.
Okay.
The second point, when we say Smartmatics, which was taken as the technology service provider for this election, Smartmatic has a history in the entire world, in all the continents. Here in Uganda, their electronic voter identification kit devices failed. Here in Uganda. In Zambia, it was a mess. Yeah. In Philippines, in Ghana, in Venezuela, in some countries in the United States of America. I mean, the kind of technology service provider you brought to us has a very serious reputational problem. When we are asking for this to be addressed, these are questions that are structural to the conduct of free and fair elections. When we ask that KPMG has conducted an audit of the voter register, where is the KPMG report? Because those are part of what you call confidence building blocks. We see the audit report, what did it find out, and what remedies have you taken to cure it? When we ask about the additional 10,000 new polling stations, it's a legitimate, genuine question, because remember this, under the Election General Regulations, Regulation 3, I think 3 or 5, it requires that political parties must be given the list of proposed presiding officers per polling station for their commentaries. If they oppose or object to a particular person being appointed a presiding officer, the political party should be able to communicate it and say, the person you've appointed is Ken, who is Willis' former classmate. They were roommates in campus. This cannot be a fair referee in an election where Willis is a contestant.
Yes.
Now, you can only do that if you provide the political parties, you provide civil society groups, you provide the media with the list of all the polling stations and where they are
located.
Now, these are genuine, legitimate elections questions. I've lived my life working on elections. And when I ask these questions, I'm not asking these questions to score political points. I don't need the political points. We have opportunity on the field to campaign and speak on our political issues. But when we ask about structural issues that guarantee the free exercise of the franchise of the voter, we don't expect heckling to be on the table. We expect substantive responses to the issue that we raised.
Take that back.
Allow me to answer. Maybe
you have an opportunity.
So
you're on the table. So
although that should not be allowed, because that is I don't believe my opinion, which I come here and I drive to studio to come and give an opinion and analysis, can be referred to as heckling. You know, take that back. It's not heckling. I'm a Kenyan, just like you, Willis, and I understand that you're bitter about not being on the ballot. But don't bring it to the table. Let's be professional.
And let me answer something. I wanted to deflect the question a bit. I think myself and Manyora have been taken aback a bit. The issue, I think, on the table is what can IEBC do within 21 days? I want us to ask that question. We can raise specific issues about IEBC. And I think we've been in Haman for quite some time. And one thing I'll agree with him, you cannot, as a competitor, climb on the high roof and praise the referee, because post 10th of August, whether win or a loser, and that's the only thing I wanted to correct him. Both winner and the loser will have an interest if the matter proceeds to the Supreme Court. And in the past 2 presidential elections, it has been now set as a precedent that automatically there's always a challenge. And the beauty about the presidential petition, it helps enrich the process and helps IEBC. So my point of view is, what can IEBC do in 21 days? Let us agree to disagree on their preparedness. And this is the conversation is best held at this point before the election. It will be worse for us to do a post-mortem as to what IEBC didn't do right. Instead of us asking after 10th why the KIMs failed or whether the KIMs were authentic, it is good we ask now. Where I'm coming in is, number one, I raised the issue about the voter register. When the Kenya Kwanza coalition raised and said 1 million, and then IEBC came and said they are awaiting audit of KPMG, and Willis has mentioned very clearly. The point of discussion should be, okay, what happened to that audit? I remember the chairman came out and said they have been able to clean up and they got around 400,000, not 1 million, and specific IEBC officials have been able,
5 of them.
I think 5.
Yeah, 5.
He mentioned that they have been
They're being investigated.
They're being investigated.
Yes.
The thing I took from that was the quick turnaround or the quick response to it. It raises a red flag and makes you wonder if that's just one problem, or is it, do we have a multitude of other problems? The only advantage, and this is the thing, I'm not even praising IEBC per se, I'm just appreciating this bit, their ability to respond and trying to be able to deal with a problem with the limited time. To the point today I saw them, I think IEBC lawyer is in court trying to argue against the case for Kigame, because now Kigame has been given a right to participate in the election. Now IEBC has gone back to court asking the court, now how about the fact that we had already printed ballot papers? What happens to them? Number 2, for how long will the dispute run in the courts? Because the time limit is of serious importance. Majority of Kenyans may not even follow through the court processes, but they have an implication. So I'm trying to appraise them. That's why I gave us 64%. I'm trying to appraise them from a point of being pragmatic and being open to communicate and ability to accept with a view of trying to see what best can we do. So my proposition would be this. The 2 coalitions did a very good thing in selecting the liaison committee or whatever their respective liaison persons. For example, in the Kenya Kwanza, there's Professor Kindiki. On the Azimio front, they were able to propose
Setabao, Kindiki.
There's Kindiki and there's Kanchori,
yes.
some lawyer. So these particular stakeholders, I just need to see them being on the forefront, because they are the one given frontline, and IEBC said these are the stakeholders, will give them direct access, and not just the 2 coalitions. We have to be alive that there's also the downstream tickets, they also have the other candidates. Let us give them a chance. Number 2, let us have a round table anytime an issue comes, and last week was the best when you had the media together with IEBC. It is good then we also involve the stakeholders. Let's not have piecemeal kind of dealing. If the media is there, we have the observers here, we have the civil society, we have the stakeholders directly through the liaison and IEBC, and then we place question by question. And then lastly, it would even be perfect further IEBC doing this, like with 21 days, nothing stops them doing daily as we deal with these issues.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to go further with this, Haman. And what the IEBC could not respond to were 2 things. And I found one thing. I was in that panel. Now, the first thing they couldn't respond to is how the candidate of Gloria and Kipto knew, even before the audit, that there were 1.1 million voters that have been transferred. And the qualification was, my supporters have been transferred. They couldn't support. In fact, the question was deflected. Why don't you ask them how they knew? The second thing that I'm really interested in is what Willis has mentioned. And this also goes to question the level of preparedness. Smartmatics. The CEO said all those things that were brought to the table did not come to them. They were not aware of it. Now, once these queries were raised, and they're legitimate, as Willis says, what happens, Haman? Do we still say, let's go to the election with what we have? You know, and Willis and Kipto are watching. They will go to court and say, this was questioned before the election.
Ken, I've told you we have an election. And in order that the country does not plunge into chaos, we shall have to have these elections. All of us must support IEBC, even as we raise issues. I will go by what Kipto is saying. We had better be proactive. let the major players work with IEBC to work on what they can work on. You get it? To answer your question about root knowing, it's really unsettling, especially if you come up with almost the exact figure, the exact number. But IEBC, to be fair to them, have said really, Ruto didn't talk about the sort of votes KPMG came up with, which are categorized into dead voters, into people who have been moved to other stations wrongly, into double registration, totaling to about 1 million. He talked about deleting, and the IEBC was very clear about this, that Ruto talked about deleting them from the register, and they are his from his strongholds, which is really wrong. So you cannot blame IEBC because Ruto is talking about deleting, but the 1 million we have is about dead voters, wrong transfers, double registration, etc., etc. You get it? But the worrying thing is, how did he know it's 1 million? And they didn't answer that. Sort of thing, if I was, for example, working with them, I could perhaps find a way of getting around that. But it does point...
What would you have said?
You know,
No, but I'm sitting here.
What would you have said?
I'm an expert.
Yeah. What would you have said? How would you have explained it?
I'm an expert. I can
How would you have
explain it.
explained it?
They need to pay me now.
Spin doctor is a spin doctor.
What you are saying,
Spin.
what you are saying, it's so worrying that he's able to say the 1 million.
Yes.
It points on it one thing, and they couldn't say that. How do they expect them to say they are insiders who have given him that information?
Because facts are
They
facts.
wouldn't say that, but they get close to. They got close to saying that by saying they were culprits. Although the culprits were those pinned for transferring people wrongly. Those are the ones they are dealing with, the 5 of them. But it can only mean that.
Okay.
As for the company that is delivering the technology, the mathematics, whatever you call them, I also thought the CEO wasn't quite clear in explaining. I thought if he had been prepared by a communication person, he could have explained it much better. As to whether it is capable or not, I think that was a different question. That was a difficult question. Nobody can answer, even if you are the CEO yourself. You wouldn't answer it. This time, 23 days, it was about 24 days to election, and you are being told these guys are a mess, but they have come out to defend themselves since then. They have said, it's not true. So I don't really want to be hard on IEBC, especially because they must deliver this election.
We have an election to do. All right.
So let me just spend 1 minute
Yes.
to tell you not to be unfair to this lady. There are certain things you don't expect her to understand. She wouldn't even, for example, even understand IPPG, how it works. She wouldn't even understand about BBI. What are the things in BBI are proposals from people who want to amend the Constitution.
Wow.
You don't have to agree with them. And on the issue of political parties nominating commissioners, other than it having served us well in 1997 through IPPG, it is one of the known...
Even 202.
Yes,
There's a
it was the
compromise
best.
in
It was
202.
the 202 commission.
It is one of the known ways of forming a commission by experts. There are about 3-4 ways in which you can form a commission. One of them is for the players themselves to nominate, and it has worked in this country. Don't be unfair to her. She wouldn't know.
And elsewhere, I'm coming to Gloria, but let me go to
that is
Gloria, I'm coming to you.
I'm just sitting right here listening to someone saying I don't understand anything.
There's nothing wrong with not understanding.
I mean, really.
There are many things I also don't know.
Be fair. Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds.
To respond to that, then I go to Jack. Yes.
You know, I respect you highly.
I also do.
And, you know, if someone can sit on the same table with anyone and then claim that this person cannot understand these things, they should be very fearful of where their career trajectory is going, because the person who they claim does not understand anything is on the same table with them. You know, I don't want to ask you how old you are, but at my 36 years of living and a nominee of the Senate, I have actually, now I'm sitting on the same table with Manyora, who's apparently an expert. And, you know, I don't want to be demeaning because I was taught better, yeah? I can get, if there was a degree being given by an institution of the Building Bridges Initiative, I will tell you that I have a PhD in BBI. And I interrogated that document. I even went for the launch when they were shouting my presidential candidates down. I interrogated with the 14-member task force, which actually had an average age of 57, because wako na hii madharau ya kusema sisi wadogo, we don't understand anything. But you know what, for today, I will sit here and I'll watch my professor help me to understand how their presidential candidate has repeatedly rejected results, and they can come here and spin it, spin, doctor.
Okay, Gloria. Let me go to Jack. Jack, perhaps because you're far, you don't have the benefit of contributing so much in this, but one of the things that the IEBC has been indicted for is their inability to dispense information as much as Kenyans would want. What is the practice? If you were in this commission reflecting back ECK, would it be different? And how integral is that component of giving information, in fact, if possible, daily, just for Kenyans to know where you are, what you're doing, and what to expect? Because there was also an issue about the ballot papers that had already been printed arriving in the country, and part of the commission having the knowledge, part of the commission totally in the dark.
Transparency is a constitutional requirement. IEBC has no option other than to be transparent in all its activities. As I say, it is a constitutional requirement, and I believe that of late IEBC has been doing quite a bit to give the information as required. There was a time it was quiet, but then it was basically because I think they had very few members of staff, and the information was not coming up as quickly as we would have liked to. Right now, it is very, very important that IEBC informs the public, the Kenyans, about all the steps it takes. For instance, I think it has talked about the audited register. It is important that IEBC that works hard to ensure that that audited register is out and distributed so that people know what is in it. The other thing that is lacking is this question of transmission. It failed. Well, it didn't fail. It didn't do as well when they tested it. We have to be told what is happening so that we can go voting when we are comfortable. But so long as IEBC does not come out at this juncture and explain these missing links, it is going to be very difficult. The voter education, which we have not talked about, is very, very important because we have to educate our voters so that they know when, how to vote. I think it may be a little late, but it is possible for them to engage the civil society so that they can assist them in voter education. It is not doing as well as one would have expected to do, especially when we have surrendered this responsibility to politicians who are sort of poisoning wananchi in one way or the other. It becomes very difficult for people to know. The polling station, a very, very sensitive area, and we have been told that some of the ballot papers may be booklets. Have we had time to advise our voters on how to go about it? Or even the presiding officers who will be at the polling stations? Have we had time to explain to them how they will handle it? I actually can imagine seeing chaos at the polling stations because of these elongated ballot papers. What Kenyans have to do, hoping we are going to go through peacefully, is to look at the law and find a way of making this transparency we talk about in the electoral process workable. Because the way things are now, we have confused even the actors, and we are only ready to go for blaming them on mistakes that don't, to me, appear to be of their own making. So there is still little time, but we have to move fast. Transparency, I repeat, IEBC has to come out and share with us the areas it finds that it is not doing as well.
Okay. Well said. For someone who has practiced this before, I think the IEBC, if they're watching, they're taking that into account. But I want to talk about one more thing that was also important. Now, this is the first time, I think, in the last 3 elections or so, that Kenyans will not be receiving what they call, what is the name they use for the interim results? I mean, they're saying they will not be broadcasting them, right? Willis, are you concerned that Kenyans will be anxious, because this is going to cause anxiety? We know what happened in the last elections and how there's a time, even after 24 hours, you know, we went to bed with certain results and then we woke up and the results were changed. Then there was also logarithms. There's a constant 54%. So these are concerns. So they're saying to address this, media, which is a good thing for us, they're opening up. So we will be in the constituencies. We can announce these results as they come, right? Which is a good thing. But ultimately, the media will never call these results. Secondly, now we're going to do the transmission, normal transmission. So it means there will be no whiteboard with constant updates. The anxiety that comes with this.
Let me tell you that, Ken. You see, I'm the latest father of that quest in my minor KI case versus IEBC in 2016, Court of Appeal. What we are saying is that the structure of our Constitution, Article 138.5, requires 138.8 requires that you conduct every presidential election at the constituency level. And when we went to court in the minor KI case, you were asking the court to give meaning to Article 138. So if IEBC has now agreed that we will use the results that is announced at the constituency as the basis of what you are projecting the people, that is in tandem with the decision of the Court of Appeal, and I like that. And let me say this. What they were doing in Bomas, I remember when I was at our National Tallying Center for NASA at that time, the polling stations were closing at 5 p.m. At 5:10, alphanumerics was streaming at Bomas. I have done elections in more than 10 countries in this continent.
10 minutes is impossible.
It is impossible even to close the polling station
On time.
alone.
Yes.
Even if, let's say that by 5 o'clock sharp you close your polling station, there's what you call the closing procedures.
30 minutes.
Because the closing procedures
Yes.
makes you take care, you take custody, you take stock of everything that you started in the morning and what you have at the closing.
Yes.
Before you set up for counting, in 10 minutes, 5:10, there were results at Bomas.
And all agents to be there to sign.
Yes, everybody must
It's a
be.
long
It's a
time.
process. So that if they are going to use that process, for me, in fact, then what they should be saying, we must now start preparing our media to responsibly only relay that formal announcements that is made by the gazetted returning officer for that particular constituency. So that what you are capturing, because once the constituency returning officer has finished the tallying is done in the presence of all the agents who are present. Then he fills that form and he signs it.
Everyone signs.
Then he announces it and provides the form. At that point, if the media goes out to publicly announce, then everybody has an opportunity at their own level to take stock that, for example, in the Lagos constituency, these were the returns. If you go to Embakasi South, these were the returns. So that I'm able to tell at the end, when I get to, let's say, 245 constituencies, I'm able to tell that based on this tally, the projection in this election is going to be won by so-and-so. And if you look at the United States of America, by the time the president-elect normally gives his acceptance speech, it is always based on their own tallies and the media projections for each of those states. The formal commission process normally takes place on the 10th of December. That is when the election management body sits down to formally make a declaration as to those results. But by that time, 10th of December, everyone knows the president-elect has since assumed office.
More than a month.
More than a month. He has already assumed the status of a president-elect. That is what, if they're saying they're going to do that, that's a positive plus. We just need to make sure that there's responsibility on the part of all the players, that what you are projecting is the declaration of the announcement that's being done by the returning officer.
Particularly the media.
But
you see how the media is going to play a critical role. And now you understand when we say that if the media is appearing to be biased, exactly how Willis has actually explained that. The media is going to play a critical role in this election. And when we come out and say that we are seeing red flags, that certain media houses are actually biased towards a presidential candidate, it is not because we want to be covered more. It is because there is going to be a very sensitive role that the media will play. And I think when that should be addressed objectively without assuming that there are people who are looking for airtime. Tomorrow we have the debate for the deputies. And, there was this question of, are we going, who's not going, blah, blah, blah. And, every time someone asks me, I say, for me, any media opportunity for a candidate, whether presidential or otherwise, is a good opportunity.
Let me ask you, Gloria. For example, when you talk about partisan, just in 30 seconds, I mean, there is no way a media house media houses can decide to relay what they're not seeing on the ground. I mean, whenever you accuse the media of being partisan, it's usually a surprising assertion from a lot of people. How do we, for example, where agents are and there are papers that have been signed, how do you become partisan with that?
That is what I'm saying. Yes. We can't speak of what has not happened. What we can do is call out the red flags when we are seeing that there's already a bias towards, especially.
But on that day, let's talk about that day. Is it possible that the media can decide that this is the form that has been declared, but we as the media, let's put out this other form? Can
I give you a very possible scenario in terms of that? The media can also decide not to relay it.
Decide not to relay.
You're talking about, tampering or rigging an election does not necessarily mean that you change the numbers.
So the media can decide we're not going to relay this. I can also,
as a media house that is biased, I can also decide to withhold that information and, start through other, now there's the mainstream media and then you have these other medias. If I decide as a mainstream media to withhold the information that I have and then I push my bloggers, which we have seen in media houses, to give wrong information, that's a form of rigging. So I need that point to be out there, that the reason we are really calling out those media houses that are biased is because we know that there's a critical role come 9th of August, 10th of August that they're going to play.
Now, I think I'll go back to your question about IEBC talking about relying or the reliance of the results. My proposition goes back to what he had spoken about. If IEBC has decided to work with the media and the stakeholders on an open platform, nothing stops on matters relying of the results. The only thing is that there's always a gap, and this is what the experience I saw in 2013 and in 2017, and this has to change this time round. The moment IEBC gets to Bomas, they kind of barricade themselves, and immediately the entire place is considered a security zone. And GSU, Reke Squad, and the rest of the people are poured in. And there is a whole cordon that even media can be jungle unless you are accredited. They may give, for example, standard group 2 or 3 people only, and nothing much. Even the same media within this, where the National Tallying Center is, would only be reduced to be the audience, just like the party agents, where they'll be looking at a screen, nothing more. So the media is left to fend for itself. IEBC does its thing. So that I remember one of the disconnect that used to happen, or that has happened before 2013 and 2017, you find journalists asking a question because they say, we have information. We have this result over this particular polling station, or a constituency returning officer has declared these results. And whoever is reading the results, whether a commissioner or a chair, they'll only say, wait. We are the final one. Unless we read whatever you have, those are you are.
Doesn't matter.
Now, how do we avoid that case scenario? One of the proposals I agree with is, one, by virtue that our polling centers will be open for scrutiny and voters are free to wait for the results to be announced and they can record. What is of paramount importance, now that they seek to apply what Supreme Court asks of them, it is important then the timeline within which a result has been declared at the polling center. The reliance to the constituency returning officer should be instant. The instantaneous nature of the communication will make it very easy, so that when the CRO, the constituency returning officer, is reading out the final, the time lapse will be very clear, and the media will have the confidence and declare and say these are the results, so that whatever we'll have at Bomas must be tallying with what the media has declared. And lastly, I would want a case whereby there's also a proposition of joint venture, where the media houses, if we have centralized the communication to be the constituency tallying center, then the media can choose to have their space as a joint media, and have IEBC put IEBC on notice and say, this is the center, this is our proposition, so that the moment it is relied, we don't want a case whereby, for example, my constituency in Tindred, if the results are read at Tindred constituency and it is certified and declared, When it's being transmitted, for example, to the county returning officer and the bombers, they must be tallied. But the media be given a chance to announce. That one will make it very easy. Lastly, let us not discount the place of the parties to also do their tallying. Nothing stops them. And then remember also, media is not just mainstream media. 70% of our information we get through social media. Nothing will stop them running live.
Yeah, exactly. And we are heading.
I think I just have one or two things to say. Number one, I have to repeat that we have just about 21 days to do an election. We must give IEBC the support it requires, even as we criticize. Number two, media will play a critical role. But before anybody criticizing media, they must know, in order for KTN or Standard Group to be in the 46 or so thousand polling, maybe they'll be less because there are polling centers as opposed to polling stations, but it's a huge number. They are going to spend their money to do that. They will send reporters in the field. They must pay those reporters in terms of allowances and whatever else they get. So this is a business. So before we criticize media, we must know they are in business and they are going to spend on this election.
Yes.
So unless you are financing them, you shouldn't make a lot of noise about them covering you or not. But the more critical thing that I want Kenyans to think about in the remaining few days is the chaos that we are going to witness because of social media. If you think what I'm saying is far-fetched, look no further than Kiambaa by-election. Do you remember those Itumbi results that were completely at variance with the actual results from IEBC? And it was just, not even Kiambaa. When Kiambaa election was going on, there was also a ward by-election. A ward. Do you remember? Where they're just about... No. You think...
Oh, the one, yes.
Just a ward.
Yes.
If you can miss it with just a ward and the election just taking place in one county.
What about the country? The whole country.
So what I want IEBC and the other stakeholders to do is to sit down and look at the potential danger that people like Itumbi and the rest of them, including Manyora and perhaps Gloria, who may be in social media and able to blog, can cause this country. Because media can cause damage if it's not well used. But I think the political players, the media houses, IEBC must sit down as a matter of urgency. And remember 2013, media was stopped from broadcasting anything about results because of the post-election violence. In 2013, there was a little confusion, but they were able to do one or two. Now, it's free for all.
Including the social media.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So it is important that we know that media, especially social media, has the potential of causing chaos
in this country.
And we must manage that.
At the end of the day, where the referee stands, and as much as we have social media, it's places to dispense.
I feel like walking to IEBC,
but
to tell them one or two things.
Social media
I need
is
to talk.
a jungle.
It's everything.
The only beautiful thing,
let's stick to.
As I've said, the only beautiful thing about it, it is the speed of reliance of them of the information. Now that we are basing these results on the constituency returning officer, as soon as he or she gets and it's verified.
And the good thing with that, you mentioned 46,000, which I don't think any media house has the capacity to cover. But we have the capacity to cover 290 constituencies. We have even Standard Group alone, 290. As in closing, I need to give Jack 2 more. 1 minute. You had commented about the media, so I'll not come back with that. We are running seriously out of time, 18 minutes out of time. So, Commissioner, end this for us tonight. Overall, the bigger picture of this election, what is it?
I want to end up by advising the IEBC to revisit the ruling of the Supreme Court, looking at the irregularities, looking at the illegalities, with knowing that anybody can go to court using exactly what was in the ruling. If they can look at them within these 21 days and see how to put them right, because there are plenty of the repetition of against what was ruled. If they can do something about it, perhaps we can have a free and fair election.
Jack Tuma, thank you so much. The stakes don't get higher than this in this election. Thank you so much for watching tonight, Kivumbi 2022. Out of time, but I'm so glad for this.
Ken, thank you for having me. And I just want to say that there are so many other Kenyans like me who actually deserve a place at the table. This is why we are pushing the bottom-up economic approach, so that people like Herman Manyora don't think they're the only ones who can, push the agenda. Yeah.
I don't want to open the debate.
I wanted to put it out there.
Hustlers
pia
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We shall groom her slowly, slowly. Tunamfundisha pole pole.
Thank you so much for coming. And Willie Soteno, thank you so much. I hope I can see you tomorrow at the deputy presidential debate, But you won't be there because you're not being accredited.
We are having the Kenya Kwanza Women's Charter tomorrow in Meru, so we'll try and come back quickly.
Please watch on television, and KTN will be live from Catholic University of Eastern Africa, and we'll be there until the last speaker speaks and the analysis is done. My name is Ken Mijungo. On behalf of the whole team, thank you so much for watching tonight, Kivumbi 2022. We have about 3 more to go, or 2 more to go. Have a good night and God bless.